Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start with a story in which a young prankster got what he deserved, with the help of our OP, of course. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Go ahead, call my parents. All right then, if you insist. The background. This happened a few hours ago. I work at a large chain of pizza restaurants. Let's call it Pomino's Pizza. Like most places, we get a few prank calls a week from preteens. Usually it doesn't bother me and I'll go along with it because it gives me something to do when it's slow. But being a Friday night, we were busy and I wasn't having it. Me will be me and K will be kid. The events. Me. Hi, thanks for calling Pomino's Pizza. How can I help you? K. Trying but not succeeding and holding his laughter in. Hey, is Mr. Wall there? Me. No, sir. There isn't anyone that works here. K. What about Mrs. Wall? Me. Nope, none of those either. K. Then how's your building standing up? Laughter from him in background. This went on a couple more times with classics such as, can I place an order to your sister's house? And the classic, is your refrigerator running? Then you better go get it. Finally, I had enough. I let the kids know I was done playing games. Me. All right, look, it says here that your dad's name is dad's name. We keep names and addresses of past customers and their orders in the computer for future orders just to speed up the process. If you don't stop this, I'll give him a call and let him know what's been going on. Usually this would stop the kids. I knew it did back in my earlier days of being a dumb kid, but some people just can't be bothered and have to push the envelope a bit too far. Okay, I know you won't. Go ahead and call him. Oh boy, he didn't have to ask me twice. I hang up the phone and get back to work for a little bit, knowing that the kid will be camped at the phone to answer it for the next 15 minutes or so. The compliance. I get back to work free of prank calls from the kid. I should have left it there, having solved the problem. But hey, the customer's always right, and at Pomino's Pizza, we always give the customer what they want. After the supper rush is done, around 45 minutes to an hour later, I fulfill the request. I'm still me, D is dad. Me. Hello, this is OP from Pomino's. How you doing tonight? D. Not too bad. What's the reason for the call? Me. Unfortunately, we've been getting a number of calls from this number. We're really busy and it's pushing customers away because of the wait times. Can you please have a talk with who I assume is your son and ask him to knock it off? Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I'll have a chat with him and his buddies. Thank you so much, and thanks for choosing Pomino's. At this point, I think the story's done. Kid'll get a talking to, won't do it again, that'll be the end of it. Boy, was I mistaken. Around 30 minutes later, a man and his chubby kid around 12 years old come into the store. I don't think much of it, thinking they're just getting a few slices for a snack. They come up to the counter and ask for OP. Me. Yes, I'm OP. D. I think my son has something to say to you. The kid is visibly nervous. He keeps looking around the store, won't look me in the eye. I'm sorry for calling you. I know you're busy and it won't happen again. And then to further the awkward suffering of the kid, who I kind of feel bad for at this point, the dad places an order for carryout and sits in our small eatery section where the kid has to try and avoid eye contact with me for the next 20 minutes. Left me a good tip, too. At Pomino's Pizza, the customer always gets what they want. And our next story. I just wanted the truck moved. I worked as a security guard downtown in a large Canadian city. The story starts when I got a phone call from one of the other guards working. He found a contractor had parked and left a truck in a loading dock bay and was inquiring if I knew anything about it. The site I worked at had 2 buildings, over 60 floors between them, and that shared a loading dock with only 3 spaces. Occasionally, on an expected slower day, contractors could ask us to leave a vehicle there if they were doing a quick job, but it was infrequent, as the loading dock was really busy. Around this time, there was a company who just rented 2 or 3 floors, and there was a massive remodel going on there. People were in and out constantly, and the job was going to run for a few months. This made the loading dock bays busy enough that we weren't letting anyone park there, just unload. I'd been there that day, and no one had asked permission to park, and nothing had been passed on from other guards or property management. I told the guard as much, and he went to find the contractor to have the vehicle moved. About a half an hour later, as I'm patrolling, I hear my guard arguing with someone near the building control center. As I approached, I picked up this was an argument about the truck. The contractor was saying that they'd been given permission to park there. I walked up and explained that there were only 2 people on site that day that could have given permission. I was one of them and worked with the other for half the day, and we didn't give anyone permission to park there. He needed to move the vehicle. The contractor left at that point, and I thought the issue was settled. About 15 minutes later, I was covering a break in the control room when the foreman of the contract company, who's also the owner of the truck, approached and told me that they'd been promised parking and aren't going to move the truck. I again politely explained to him that he didn't have permission and that the truck needed to move as we needed the loading dock space. He then proceeded to yell at me, call me worthless, explain how he was much more important than I was, how he made my yearly salary in a month, and most importantly, he wasn't moving the truck and he'd get me fired if I kept harassing him. As I started to respond, he just turned and walked away as he was too busy to bother with me. I was furious. It's bad enough to be a disrespecting a-hole, but also threaten my job was too far. I followed after them and asked them really quickly what company they were with, got the company name, and left them alone. I went back to the control center and called the company. I explained who I was, that the truck was illegally parked, that the contractor threatened to have me fired for asking him to move the truck, and that he refused to speak with me about the issue as he was worth too much to bother with a lowly security guard. We spoke for a few minutes, and she apologized and asked me what I wanted to happen. I just asked that the contractor be spoken with, as that level of disrespect is unacceptable, and lastly, the truck had to be moved. Pretty quickly, the truck was moved, and the night supervisor for the 3-floor build came and apologized. The contractors were friends of his. He'd given them permission to park there as they were helping out for the next few weeks on the job. He paid to park the truck himself, and it cost over $150 to park just for the night in the closest lot. He didn't come across as actually apologetic at all, more a guy doing damage control for his friends. This is where the revenge gets pro. $150 in parking is petty at best. The next day, I ran into one of the contractors I was on great terms with. We'd often talk for a while when we could. He explained that he was the lead for the entire build on the project, which I hadn't realized previously. I thought he was just one of the regular guys. He spoke with the night supervisor and heard about the issue, chewed out the night supervisor for handling the situation so poorly, fired the subcontractors from the job, and blacklisted them from ever doing business with them again. The main contractor company was a huge company that's constantly doing work with the property management company, who own around a third of all the major buildings in that city, and similar amounts in most of the other big Canadian cities. Not a company you want a bad reputation with. And our last story. Cheating neighbor gets drunk, picks fight, gets marriage ruined in the process. A few years back, this guy moved into a duplex next door to my family with his wife and 2 kids. His wife was a quiet, well-mannered woman, and their 2 kids were super sweet. This guy, however, was an alcoholic D-bag who made it a point of being an obnoxious, rude A-hat. Over the course of a few years he lived in our neighborhood, he regularly did business with addicts out of his home. 2 of his clients got arrested outside his home, and on multiple occasions he'd get trashed and bring home women while his wife and kids were visiting relatives in Texas. Eventually his alcoholism started to spiral out of control, and he started getting into more and more shouting matches with his wife. My family would stay out of it and actively avoid interfering. There was never any physical violence, and we learned from his wife that when other people got involved, he would get even worse. For the sake of her and the kids' well-being, we left them alone. There were still instances, however, where we would get pulled into things. This epic bit of revenge came as a result of one such instance. My parents, 2 brothers, and I had just gotten back from a family gathering, and we were pretty drained from dealing with relatives all day. We pulled in and started unloading all the food from the back of the car when the neighbor's wife and kids came outside. We thought nothing of it until the D-bag neighbor came screeching out the front door, hurling abuse at his wife and barely able to string coherent sentences together while in his drunken rage. His wife, not wanting to alarm the neighborhood, asked him to stop yelling because the neighbors, my family, were outside. In his stupor, he came to the conclusion that because this fight was happening on his property, it was illegal for us to listen to it. He turns and starts screaming at my father and calling him a fat butt and other terrible names. He then proceeded to walk to the edge of the property line and threatened to kick my dad's butt. To paint you a picture of my dad, he's about 280 pounds of pure FU and doesn't put up with people treating him like crap. My dad gave his concealed handgun to my mom, calmly walked out to the property line and looked the neighbor dead in the eye. He then gave the neighbor the choice: walk away or persist and face the consequences of his actions. The neighbor, being a drunken crap biscuit, decided to scream at my father, saying dumb crap stuff like, "Hit me, you fat B-turd, and I'll F you up." Taking that as the answer, my dad looked over at the neighbor's mortified wife and said, "I'm sorry you have to find out this way, but he's been cheating on you." She starts to cry, and the neighbor somehow turns redder than he had been mere moments before. His wife quickly put the traumatized children in the car and sped off, all while her husband begged her to let him explain. After she drove off, he went inside, and we don't hear a peep out of him the rest of the night. In the months that followed this incident, we only saw his wife there a couple of times. In the end, she left his butt with most of what he owned, including his SUV that he was super proud of. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.